Hello, and welcome back to the Aslan Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Mike Hauman. Today, we'll begin a series on red light therapy. This is a subject that's recently moved from the margins of wellness hackers to the center of everyday conversation. I personally have had several questions from listeners inquiring about the uses of red light for its potential health benefits. So if you're unfamiliar with red light products and the therapy, listen in. You won't be for long. Red glowing face masks, hair growth helmets, and athletes standing in front of bright lights after training are all over the media. Influencers are promising younger skin, less pain, more energy, better sleep, faster recovery, thicker hair, and the list goes on. There's a lot of marketing behind these claims, yes, but there's also some valid science. So today, in this reveal episode, I want to answer the important questions. What exactly is red light therapy? What does it do? How does it work? And what does the scientific evidence show? Because, friend, God himself said, "Let there be light." So if red light therapy can truly be helpful, we should understand and apply best practices to wisely and safely get the most out of this therapeutic option. Which means we need clarity, discernment, and wisdom to see if and where red light fits into our overall wellness plan. Well, that is exactly what we're going to reveal today as we shed some light on the subject. Let's go.
Welcome to the Aslan Health Podcast, where science meets soul. Your host for this program is Dr. Mike Hauman, an experienced physician, a certified functional medicine provider, a certified insight coach practitioner, and a devoted follower of Jesus Christ. If you're tired of feeling stressed out, exhausted, overwhelmed, or stuck in survival mode, you're in the right place. So take a deep breath. Let's be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Here's Dr. Mike.
First things first, what is red light therapy? Well, once called low-level laser therapy, red light therapy is now referred to as photobiomodulation. I know, that's a mouthful. But the name is useful because it is self-descriptive. Photo is the energy of light, called a photon. Bio means life. Just think biology, the study of life. And modulation, of course, is to influence, adjust, or modify something. So, photobiomodulation means using the energy of light to influence or modify biological function. To be clear, this is not ultraviolet light or tanning light. This is not a heat lamp. This is not the same thing as sitting in the sun trying to tan yourself into wellness while pretending that that's biohacking. Red light therapy uses specific wavelengths in the red and near infrared range. Red light is visible. It usually falls somewhere around the low 600s in nanometers, and it tends to work more superficially, think skin, surface tissue, hair follicles, and the like. Now, near-infrared light is invisible to the human eye. It penetrates more deeply and is often used for muscles, joints, and deeper tissue. So already we can clear up one common confusion. When I say red light therapy, I'm including short-wave blue light, there's a purpose and we'll discuss that, red light, near-infrared light, or all of the above, depending on the application. This distinction matters because the target tissue is the important factor. So if you're treating facial skin, that's different from treating deeper tissue, say, of a sore knee. If you're addressing scalp hair, that's different from a post-workout muscle soreness as a target tissue. So selecting the goal that you want to achieve will direct you to pair the right tool and wavelength with the target tissue to achieve your desired outcome. More detail on that later. So let's move from the definition to reveal the mechanism. How does red light actually affect our tissue? Well, an analogy here will be helpful. Think of each of your cells as a tiny home, and each home has its own energy-producing power plants. Now, a single muscle cell can have up to 2,000 of these little organelles. In biological terms, that power plant is called the mitochondria. Your mitochondria use glucose to produce ATP, which is the energy currency your cells use to do their work, repairing tissue, supporting healing, managing inflammation, running muscle, powering normal cell functions, everything. One of the main proposed mechanisms behind red light therapy is that certain wavelengths are absorbed by components within the mitochondria, especially an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase. That interaction appears to improve cellular respiration, which is making energy. It supports ATP production, it influences nitric oxide signaling, and it modulates downstream inflammatory and repair pathways. Remember, your body is not simply a collection of parts. It is a living, communicating, responsive system. So, when red light reaches the right tissue at the right dose, it facilitates those power plants to do their work and improve the process of cellular function. Just like turning on the lights in a factory will improve production. So, there is a plausible biological mechanism behind red light therapy. This is not magic, it's not mysticism, and it's not energy healing in the vague, trendy internet influencer sense. It is the energy of light interacting with tissue in measurable and potentially helpful ways. Now, as often happens in medicine, once people hear there's a real mechanism, they assume the rest is easy. It is not. Because one of the most important truths about red light therapy is this: more is not better. There's something called a biphasic dose response. In plain English, too little light may do very little. The right amount of light may be helpful. Too much light may be unhelpful or even counterproductive. Think about it like this: using sunlight to get a tan. Too little light, think Cleveland in January and no tan. Or conversely, think sunny Yuma, Arizona in July for sunburn potential, and you get the picture. It is the same sun in both places, yet with significantly different results. So, if you were planning to stand in front of a red light panel until you look like a rotisserie chicken of wellness, not so fast. I don't want you to get burned, literally, figuratively, or financially. Because dosing matters, distance matters, wavelength matters, power output matters, treatment time matters, target tissue matters, and the goal of treatment matters. And that, my friend, is just one reason why this field can feel so confusing to many people. The concept is simple, but the execution is not that simple. So today, let's reveal the facts. Now, interest in photobiomodulation goes back to 1967. Early observations in ruby low-level laser light exposure seemed to influence wound healing and hair growth in lab mice. Later discoveries, including some from NASA-related involvement, furthered interest in how red light might affect tissue repair and cellular performance. So, this is not a fad invented last month in a warehouse next to a protein powder startup. The biomedical utility of red light therapy is scientifically legitimate and well documented. But that certainly does not mean that every claim made by an internet influencer is true. Which brings us to an important reveal question. Where is the evidence strongest regarding the use and efficacy of red light for the listeners at home? Because if you listen to the talking heads in the marketplace, red light therapy can sound like the answer to problems with aging, metabolism, mood, hormones, testosterone, sleep, weight loss, inflammation, and so much more. So, let's bring some clarity to the confusion and focus solely on red light therapy for home use. The strongest practical evidence for individual consumer home use red light therapy appears to be in two main areas: superficial or skin applications, and then deeper structures such as those below the skin, muscle, joint. So first, skin applications. There's meaningful evidence for facial photorejuvenation, things like improvement in fine lines, skin texture, visible signs of aging, improved overall skin appearance, things like that. Not a brand new face, but for some, a meaningful, modest, visible improvement of skin quality over time. The second skin application is for acne. Here, red light therapy can be helpful, especially when the proper wavelengths and protocols are used. With the proper device and protocol, red light can be used for inflammation, while blue light, in combination with the red, may be useful for antibacterial effects. So if you hear someone say a red light helped with their acne, it was probably a combination of red light and wavelength approach. Thirdly, hair growth. This is one of the more convincing and well-studied areas for effectiveness, especially for androgenic alopecia, which is male pattern hair loss. Works for women, too. It's not for every cause of hair thinning, balding, or hair loss, however. But for pattern hair loss, there's real evidence that the proper device and modality can help increase hair density. And finally, for deep tissue and musculoskeletal pain, there can be significant benefits as well. Certainly, we need guidance here because pain is a very large generic category. But there is decent evidence that photobiomodulation can help some forms of musculoskeletal pain, soft tissue discomfort, and some recovery-related soreness. That includes superficial joints, neck pain, TMJ, and some muscle pain. Results vary, of course, depending on the device, power, and wavelength, but this category is one of the more common reasons that people pursue red light treatment options. A final valid use for this is muscle recovery and exercise-related soreness. This is especially interesting because athletes often use red and near-infrared light before and after exercise to improve recovery, reduce soreness, and support performance readiness. The available data is supportive enough to take the use here seriously. Now, there are other promising areas and indications, but not yet at the point where I'm comfortable making a recommendation. Wound healing is one of those. As a point of reference, I've spent several decades of my practice career as a wound care physician, and as an expert having treated more than 100,000 wounds, I do not advise the novice home user to pursue this application. Admittedly, there is genuine interest and meaningful research in some wound contexts, but wound care in general is not the place for self-confident improvisation. The risk is simply too high, and it does not justify the potential reward. Another potential emerging application is in autoimmune hypothyroid states like Hashimoto's thyroiditis. But again, this is not casual home experimentation territory. If you have thyroid disease, especially if you're on thyroid medication, do not just start shining a red light on your neck because an influencer on social media seemed to be enthusiastic about it. There's also emerging areas involving cognition, mood, neurologic recovery, and sleep-related outcomes. Some of that research is intriguing, much of it's early, and I'm not yet ready to make broad recommendations for the safe home use of this therapy. So let me say plainly what I think some listeners need to hear. Red light therapy is not fake science nonsense, nor is it a universal cure. It's often the case in life that wisdom resides somewhere between the two. Red light therapy is a tool, a potentially useful tool, a clinically promising tool, sometimes a very helpful tool, one that I use, but it is still a tool. And the right tool must be applied in the right way to the right task for the best outcome. For example, a hammer is a great tool. When used in skilled hands, it can build a house. It can also crack your skull. A hammer is also not designed to do the work of a screwdriver or a measuring tape. Red light therapy is like that. Helpful in the right setting, dangerous or inappropriate in the wrong setting. Which brings us to another important reveal question. If red light therapy is real, why doesn't it help everyone equally? Well, Because biology and healthcare are not one size fits all. People are unique. Their skin, their tissue, and their physiologic conditions differ. And certainly device quality, protocol quality, wavelength delivered, and output of power all matter. And perhaps most importantly, expectations. Unfortunately, some people are trying to use red light therapy to make up for health problems that it was never meant to address. My friend, if you are sleeping 5 hours a night, you're inflamed, overfed, undernourished, sedentary, overstressed, spiritually dry, and chronically exhausted, a red light panel is not going to replace the need to reset the rest of your life. This fact is not intended to discourage you. It's intended to tell you the truth. So before you consider laying down your hard-earned cash on a new device, be very selective. Be skeptical of advertised dramatic before and after claims with no context. Be skeptical when a company promises benefits for nearly every organ system with one device and one treatment protocol. Be skeptical when there's no mention of the device wavelength, the treatment time duration, dosing distance, or specific clinical use. And be especially skeptical of claims around fat loss, testosterone enhancement, hormonal transformation, eye treatment, and language that mentions red light as a cure. I've seen all these. This requires some discernment, but it's worth it, as we're reminded in Proverbs 3:13. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. So let's step back from the red light device marketplace for a second and look at this through a biblical lens. Psalm 111:2 says, "Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them." I love that verse for conversations like this because it reminds us that the careful study of the created order is not opposed to faith. It is one way of honoring God, who made all things wisely and well, and for our good. Light is part of His created order. Cellular respiration is part of His incredible design. Healing biology is all orchestrated by God alone in bodies, systems, organs, tissues, cells, and intracellular biochemical reactions. It is absolutely incredible. When we study how the body responds to light, we're revealing one small microcosm of the astonishing creativity and wisdom of God. We must not make an idol out of a tool, however. Some folks worship physical optimization. They worship metrics, devices, practices, and protocols. My friend, your peace will never survive if your hope depends on perfect output from a red light panel in your bedroom. God is the incomprehensible sovereign creator of life. Your body is His workmanship. Medicine in every form should be a servant to your health, and technology a useful tool. Wisdom and discernment are essential in the application of both. So, let me summarize today's reveal. Red light therapy, or photobiomodulation, is the use of blue and red and near-infrared light energy to influence cellular biology. It works through intracellular mitochondrial mechanisms, signaling pathways, and nitric oxide, all to modulate inflammation and repair tissue. The current evidence for safe, practical home use is strongest for skin rejuvenation, acne care, hair growth in pattern baldness, pain relief in selected conditions, and muscle recovery. Dosing matters. The right light in the right amount matters. Too little may do too little. Too much may be counterproductive. Which leads us to our next episode, because knowing about red light is not enough. The real question is, how do you use it wisely at home without wasting money, hurting yourself, or believing the wrong promises? That is what we will cover next time in the Reset episode. But before we close, let me leave you with a simple reveal practice for this week. Do not start by asking the question, what is the best red light therapy device on the market? Or who recommends which device? Start by asking, What problem or condition am I going to treat? Be specific. Is it acne, hair loss, facial aging? Is it muscle pain or joint pain? Is it post-workout soreness? Because when your goal is vague, the polished bling of marketing wins. But when your goal is clear, wisdom has a fighting chance. Then, take your treatment goal before the Lord. James 1:5 says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him." That's wise counsel for all of life, including your health and wellness decisions. Ask him for wisdom. Ask him for patience. Ask him for discernment. Ask him to protect you from falsehood, from fear and foolishness. You will be glad that you did. My friend, thank you for joining me today on the Aslan Health Podcast. Please subscribe and follow for the rest of this important series. And also, please download the quick reference guide that I created just for you and for this series. Until next time, may the Lord give you wisdom to study His work carefully, to steward your body faithfully, and to walk in the light of truth with the hope that only He can provide. His blessings to you, my friend.